So, I watch a lot of videos about microscopes and outer space and different things like that. And I see some of the children today having some of the like $300 microscopes and some of this equipment because some of the parents today understand that this Chinese bullshit breaks all the time. But you have a lot of people like my roommate who don't read packaging and they think that a cracker is a cookie. And they're not. They're not the same thing. Like here, I'll give you an example. I've never had a working microscope in my life. I bet if you ask my father, he would tell you different because he went out and bought a child's toy microscope made in China, made out of plastic. And that was very nice of him. Now, he didn't let me get an education in New Mexico. He didn't let me get an education in Maine. Things went very downhill. He had very little concern about me getting a proper education. But he did buy me a toy microscope. But the thing didn't work. I spent 5 years trying to get the thing to microscope anything, pond water, anything. Nothing would come up. It was always blurry because all it was a magnifying glass. And when you read the packaging further, which I kept having other people help me with it was a made in China toy microscope. It was nice. It had a light on it. It said it projected on the wall too, but that feature never worked. We got even, I had a babysitter hook it up, and she said, no, the lens doesn't work. She looked it up, and she's like, no, this is a very, very cheap toy. She goes, it's not going to work for the plug-in. Then she checked the microscope lens and goes, it does magnifying, but you're not going to see any microbes with this microscope. She said, it's just a magnifying glass. She goes, you can put your hair under it, and if you notice, it only zooms in your hair a little bit and it's really blurry and you can't adjust it. It has no adjusting on it. I said, okay. So I stuck my hair under there and I got to see a blurred hair. And I still was very interested into what a microscope actually might do. But this was not something I really asked for. At this point, I just wanted I just wanted to be warm. I wanted to be indoors. I wanted my medals not to be taken away. I wanted not to be drooling. I wanted not to be shaking. I wanted not to fall down in front of fireworks. I wanted not to be moved around so much. I wanted not to have my mother beat me with rulers and throw shoes and act drunk and weird. I wanted not to have my mother screaming in the car about nonsense. I wanted my mother not to make up stories about me. So asking for a microscope wasn't really on my things to do. The way I asked for toys was if the other kids all had Game Boys, I asked for a Game Boy. If I was in a store and something looked special that another kid's had, I asked if I could be like the other kids. I just wanted to have a home and a family like every other kid had. That's all. I just wanted to be like the other kids I saw. The other kids got like when I was living in Haverhill, I just wanted to go out with the other kids to get clothing. Really simple. I wanted clothing. Every kid in the program gets to go clothing shopping. Why do I not get clothing? Why am I left in the room not able to go clothing? I mean, even my father brought me out, but this not like these kids. I mean, I'm literally trading cigarettes for clothing, and it's going nuts with them. But then again, my father did not care if I was treated like the other orphans. He did not care if I was picked on because the other orphans had more clothes than me. These were orphans who literally had more clothing than a kid with a father. This was pathetic. Pathetic that my father thought that it was more important for him to bring me out once a year or during the different seasons, do like $100 shop or whatever, and he thought that was acceptable. While every other kid in this orphanage that I live in goes out every month with the staff to the mall to pick up clothing, and I'm the only one left behind every month. And when I ask the staff members every single month why every kid gets to go and I'm the only kid twiddling his thumbs that's forced to be punished in his room every month, they say, ask my father why I'm being punished and have to stay in my room. So I ask my father, and he tells me he doesn't know and lies through his teeth. It's because he was collecting a Social Security check and wanted more and more and more. And that's why he got upset when he did bring me clothing shopping and wanted me to buy cheaper clothes. But I never cared about that. I never cared about what I wore, if they were good brands or bad brands. If I got $50 a month, that would have been good enough for me. All these other kids are spending $200 a month in clothing. Well, I would have been happy with 50 just to go out to the mall with and get clothing. I could have got two shirts with month and 1 month and then two pants the next. And I mean, these kids were getting watches, pants. They were doing okay at 200. Meanwhile, my father, he doesn't care. For years, this was never a concern. So keep that in mind when you go over these type of problems. I'm going to try to do a part two because this stuff is, I mean, I'm remembering what it was like to sit in a room, because that was a punishment, to sit in your room where you had no toys. You know, they would take your toys out of your room and the staff would keep control out of them. So I'm sitting in my room with with literally like nothing to do for 3 hours while these kids come home all happy. I mean, as soon as their checks the staff go, okay, get ready, we're going to the mall. Here's your check. Hold on to it. Don't lose it, or you don't get to go shopping. Hold on to this. Okay, let's go. Then they all hop in the van and they go and leave me there to sit in my room by myself. Only kid in the program that doesn't get to go. I'm punished to my room. No, and they get to stop at McDonald's. They have all this fun. They come home all hyper and happy, drinks in hand, whatever. Why is this happening to me? Ask your father. It's because he had a Social Security check and he was pocketing it. That's it. He didn't want to give them money to bring me out shopping. That's it. They probably asked him, "Hey, it'd be nice if you wrote your son a check for clothing and let him go shopping with the rest of it." And he was like, "No, no, no, no. That's too much money." He probably said something like that. I can't imagine that the staff member didn't mention it to him, with me crying all the time that I'm punished to my room every single month. It was ridiculous. I mean, I had a bike sitting in Chelmsford, and I wasn't even allowed to use it 5 days a week because I was sitting in this program. I tried to rebuild the bike in the shed out of pieces, and I was the only kid. Oh my God, I spent months and months trying to find pieces that I could throw on this bike, and eventually I got it working until a car hit me. Hit me real good, too. Oh man, I was at the hospital. My parents actually did show up for that one. I was very surprised. During childhood, they did show up later in life. But when I was in New Mexico or before in Westford, they didn't care one bit. Well, if other people were responsible, they cared. Then they could sue them or something like that. But if they were responsible, if my mother was responsible for causing the damage, they didn't care. I think that was the big concerner. So keep that in mind when you think of stuff like a really far back at childhood. It doesn't always pan out. It doesn't always make sense. Like I was given a microscope, but what they're doing nowadays is they're selling things that aren't the same. Like for instance, a lot of parents think that bread is bread. They think they can give bread to their child and it has the nutrition of bread like in the past. It does not. Bread has very little nutrition if you're buying Wonder Bread. If you're buying like an actual ancient grain bread, maybe. But most of the bread today is not nutritious. And you got people with slathering butter on white bread, Wonder Bread, and giving it to their child for breakfast and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, do you realize that that is no longer bread? The companies have drained it. Just like the microscopes for $20 aren't real microscopes. And the cheap knockoff toys for $20 that are made in Mexico and or sold in Mexico, made in China, fall apart as soon as they're out of the box. I didn't know these things as a child, but I got to learn them because my parents made mistakes and I got to learn from those mistakes. And thank God for them. Like I know that if I ever have a child, I should never buy anything cheap because my child will just have it break in his hands. And my father was nice enough to buy me these toys, good ones, bad ones, Game Boys, expensive. So I learned this lesson, but I'll never get to use it. Because I gotta say, my father bought me a lot of wants. He sure did. Now, he didn't get me an education. I didn't get food. I got food poisoning and a gunkwit. So he didn't protect me and give me what I needed. I needed food, water, shelter, medical care, housing, stuff like that. I didn't get housing most of the time. I got frozen outside before I was even like 12 years old. I got food poisoning multiple times before I was 10. I got drugged with medication repeatedly from different orphanages, hospitals, and my own mother. So my father and mother did not give me anything that I needed, but they did give me what I wanted. Even when I was getting choked out on the choking couch and getting food poisoning, my father made sure that I got the best Game Boy out of any of the kids. So, yes, he did get me the wants. He got me the Game Boy. He got me the candy canes on Christmas that the staff were eating at night. I'm not even kidding. My father sent me like some candies for Christmas, and the staff members